In the process of creating art, we're forced to confront the unhealed, unintegrated, unreconciled parts of ourselves in order to create authentic art. Because it's really about coming back into relationship with who we are authentically. And that's what is at the forefront of my work with men, so that they can go from this identity that is focused on getting paid and getting laid to like their divine purpose, their higher purpose, their mission in life that is always bigger than the individual and is always meant to outlast the individual.
Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started.
Hi, Be It Babe. All right, we have a really awesome guest today. I'm really excited about it because I just finished talking to him. So we had Carrie Ford on earlier this year, and she was a phenomenal somatic coach for women. And she was asking me if I thought that her partner would be a great fit for you guys. And I heard about his book. I heard about what he does. And I was like, absolutely, we actually need to talk about this, because I think, first of all, even though you will hear him say he's a men's transformational coach, a lot of what we talked about was about perfectionism and why some of us would use perfectionism in our life or procrastination. So please take a listen from the lens of like, how am I using that in my life? And what is that like? And then holy fucking moly, the be it action items at the end. I wrote them down after the whole interview was over so that I could use them right away. They're very action-oriented, easy to use and apply right away. And so you definitely want to stick all the way to the end. And I just want to say thank you to Jacob for being here. Thank you for sharing his story. And also thank you for you listening. We bring in different guests all the time because I know that sometimes I can hear something from one person and it can be like the thing that I needed that day. And you can hear it and it could be the thing you needed yesterday, next week for a friend. And then we have another person come on and they say something a little bit differently about the same thing. And it can just start to help peel back the layers that help us eventually be it till we see it, because being it till we see it is not easy. It is not something that like you just decide and like it happens, no problem every single day. It is a decision you have to make every single day over and over and over again, because it's actually kind of easy to not be it till we see it, to just wait and like let things happen to us. So anyways, Jacob Kauffman, thank you for being the guest. Here he is. And please, y'all, let me know if you used his beat action items. All right, Be It Babe. I got a special guest. They're all special, but this one is actually a very special person to a wonderful friend of mine who's been on the show, and you loved her episode very much. So Carrie Ford was like, if you like me, you'll probably like this person, and maybe they'll be able to shine some light of love for all of us here. So we have Jacob Kauffman in the house, and you are a newly published author. Sir, can you tell everyone who you are and what you're rocking at?
I can absolutely do that. Thanks again for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Jacob Kauffman, like you already mentioned. I'm a men's transformation coach, spiritual mentor, business mentor, and author. And I just recently released my first book. It's called Let Love In, The Pain Stops When the Truth Starts. And the focus of my work, especially with men, is just that. Is coming into relationship with their deepest truth, their highest, most authentic self, to bring more of their unique essence forward in the world and their mission.
Yeah, that's a big feat. It's not a small task. So I guess like where we should start is like kind of what made you want to start doing this? Is this something you grew up wanting to do? Is it something that kind of found you? Like, how did you get to doing this that made you write this book?
Oh man, that's a really good question. The short story is, I very much believe in what Dickens said, that our calling is our curse. It's the thing that we can't not do. And so for me, in many respects, that was this book. I always knew that I was going to write a book, that I wanted to write a book. I think everybody has a book in them, personally speaking. It's just a question of whether or not we actually get around to writing it.
Yeah.
But, for me, I didn't seek out this story. This story absolutely found me because, and just backstory, where the book kind of starts is me sharing my story of sexual abuse on social media, online, and having this full body panic attack that resulted in what is clinically referred to as an acute nervous system breakdown. So my nervous system just collapsed under the weight of all of the connection that sharing created. The input was just too much, and it overrided my system. And it created a slew of health problems. I mean, immediately I started to vomit uncontrollably, cry uncontrollably, nausea, vertigo, all the things. And
this is great. Like, hold on. So,
Yeah.
but when you went to the doctor, is this what they diagnosed you with? Or is this something you had to like figure? I feel like that could also be like, they'd be like, did you eat something, Jacob? Like,
Sure. Yeah, no,
have you been around anybody recently?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I didn't actually go to a clinical doctor. I went to a psychotherapist because I knew on some intrinsic level that what I was experiencing was mental, emotional.
Got it.
And so I went to that type of clinician and sought that counsel. And they started going through with me, okay, you were abused. How did that impact you? How did that affect you? Not just at the time of the incident, but after the incident as well, as you can probably imagine. So my abuse, as is with most abuse, it's very multifaceted, right? There's what happened before, leading up to it. There's what happened. There's what was going on around you when it happened. And then there's what happened after the fact. Did you ever experience any proper mirroring around this incredibly painful experience? And for me, and for a lot of people, the answer was no. And so because of that, as you can probably imagine, one of my primary coping mechanisms was to pretend as if I was fine, as if I was okay and had it all together, when in fact, inside, I was shattered because of what happened. I was humiliated. I felt so much shame and embarrassment and all these other things, bitterness, resentment, and I just continued to carry those things around with me. Unfortunately, after that incident, depth of connection, love, intimacy fundamentally felt unsafe. And so when I got around to sharing my story on social media, the amount of connection that I experienced, the amount of intimacy, because now everyone on the internet knows my deepest, darkest, most shameful secret, it just was too much, too soon, too fast, and was arguably traumatic in and of itself. And it forced me, as you can imagine, to do significantly deeper work on myself, because here I am thinking, oh, I've really worked through this experience. I'm a coach and I'm coaching a lot of people. And, I've done a ton of work on myself. I've gone through therapy around, this particular incident, and I feel comfortable sharing it with the world, to do so for other people's benefit so that they can, feel permission to step into their healing journey, learn whatever lessons they can from my experience and what I did to work through it, et cetera, et cetera. And here I am confronted by the need for significantly deeper healing. It was very humbling.
Yeah.
And so that's what prompted the book, because my therapist was like, you should really journal about what's coming up for you. I think that would be very beneficial. And I was like, good idea.
So that's what you did. Yeah.
That's what I did. And it became a book.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people probably have shared things thinking they are ready to. Yeah. And then there's, social media is such an interesting thing, right? Because I think we can learn so much. And I do think it's a great place to share something. I recently had something traumatic happen and I was so angry about it that I was like, where can I take this? I'm going to take it to Instagram and I'm going to put it there. And it is at all level that I'm measuring my thing to what you just said. But I remember then having all the comments coming through and I was like, whoa, I actually don't know that I was ready to, they were all supportive. Everything was really great. But it was almost like I actually am not processed with this thing yet. And now,
Right.
and now I'm reading all this stuff. And while helpful, it's overwhelming. And so I guess like,
Right.
because I don't think that we're not saying here is like, don't share, but like, what
Sure.
are some things that maybe you'd wish you'd gone through prior to just feel a bit more prepared for that? Or what are some takeaways that we could have? Or is that something you have? Or is that like on a personal level, everyone's got to do their own thing? And then like, know the signs that you're overloaded and you need a therapist.
Yeah. Well, what I experience is, in clinically speaking, is called flooding. It's just too much, too soon, too fast. And that is in and of itself traumatic. And so it's very difficult to tell because the majority of what holds us back is unconscious.
Right.
The primary goal of the ego is to maintain the status quo. And what's the best way for it to do that? It's to hide the truth from you. So how does that manifest itself? It typically manifests itself as people downplaying what has happened to them and how it actually impacted them. We now know that trauma is significantly more about what happened inside of you as a result of what happened to you, as opposed to what actually happened. Right? So it's how you internalized it, the stories and the beliefs that you made up about yourself as a result. But I think my biggest lesson is that healing happens in layers. As much as I thought I was speaking from the place of perspective, and in many ways I was, over the years I've gone back and I've read that post several times, as you can probably imagine. It's been almost 5 years now. And I still look at that and I'm like, you can tell by the way I talk about it that I've done some work on myself, and I've reconciled it to a degree. But clearly there was more work left to be done there. And it really just revealed a need for deeper healing. And I think life inherently is 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, just like entrepreneurship, which you know full well. And so I don't think there's any one answer with regard to people's overall experience, especially when it comes to their healing journey, because it's inherently messy.
Yeah. Which is like, for every single person listening to this, they're either they're in recovery as a perfectionist, or they are one. And so like messy is not something that feels good.
Right. Yeah. Well, perfectionism is just a coping strategy. It's just a survival strategy. Just like what I was doing, acting as if I was fine, acting as if I was successful, even acting as if I was vulnerable, when in reality, it was a way in which I controlled the level of connection and relationship. All of these different things are just masks, right? Different aspects of our personality that are actually born out of pain or in an attempt to prevent pain. And so until we work through these things, until we fully reconcile the past, what are we going to do? We're going to inevitably end up recycling it in the present moment and projecting it onto other people. So if you're struggling with perfectionism, because you're also talking to a recovering perfectionist.
Hi.
Because
welcome to the meeting. Did you know it was today?
Right. Totally. Yeah. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but like I grew up in an emotionally unsafe environment. And so perfectionism and procrastination kind of became a way by which I coped, because no child is safe to feel that they are unsafe. So they need to develop very advanced coping mechanisms in order to avoid feeling that way. And so if you're still dealing with that, and this isn't a judgment on anyone, it's more so just an observation. But if that's still a significant struggle in your life, that's likely a sign that you haven't reconciled some things from the past. Because in my experience, the more you do this work, the less you struggle with those things over time. And obviously, the path is never linear. It is very much, up and down. And, falling down is kind of an inherent part of learning how to walk. Same thing is true for healing, or addiction. Relapsing is kind of a part of it. Any sponsor would tell you that if you've ever been through any type of 12-step program. And I think that's true for healing as well, that regressing is just a natural part of it. But if it's really consistent, still for you. Awareness is only going to take you so far, because it's one thing to uncover something. It's a totally other thing to undo it.
Yeah, I know. It's almost like you have to like hit, you have to hit publish before it's like knowing that it's full of mistakes, and just like not like, you just have to do the thing. You have to take those actions, and it's a little hard. I also think that like, with all of those things, it's like recognizing when it's happening, and then also trying to shorten the time frame of which that thing is happening. So like, how long are you going to live in the thing, in the forcing something to be perfect? Can you get over it faster? And like, also, it's so hard to not judge ourselves along the healing journey. Did you find like, and maybe this is in your book, and you explain this a lot with the people you work with, but like, do you find that like there was a hard part of like letting yourself be in that process? Because if you'd thought you'd healed and then you went through this whole thing, I'm sure that there was some judgment towards yourself, or some wondering like, where did I miss this?
Oh, totally. Like making up stories about like, is there something wrong with me? Or, am I actually as far along as I think I am? All of these different things that come up for us whenever we experience something painful or uncomfortable, or, a tragedy or fail.
Yeah.
It's only natural that those things come up. I think those things are there to teach us something, though, because it's not those stories that are the issue. It's typically how we react or respond to those things, because those stories create an emotional response, and that emotional response leads to actions and decisions. So it's not the stories that are the issue. It's acting from the space of those stories that's the issue. The problem is we get like stuck there, right? We self-identify with those stories. We make it personal. And then we get stuck in the space of whatever emotions come on the back end of it, self-judgment, which oftentimes leads to sadness or frustration, right? And then we just kind of get lost in the sauce, right? We don't take inspired action. We have difficulty tapping into creativity, for example, inspiration. And so because of that, we have a really hard time progressing, because there's this inherent amount of internal resistance that's holding us back because of the emotions that are attached to these stories that we're kind of consistently feeding, rather than seeking to simply understand better. Yeah.
I remember it was about a little over a year ago. I got into a situation on a phone call with a family member, and I was so angry, and I immediately emailed my therapist. I was like, I need an emergency meeting this week. Here's what happened. Do you have any time this week? And she got on the call with me, and she's like, it's actually okay you got angry. And I was like, oh, it is okay that I got angry. That thing they said made me angry. I'm allowed to be angry. She said, what's not okay is that you judge yourself for being angry about the thing. And I was like, thank you. That's where I still work there. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're like, 5 minutes, I'm good. I'll bill you for an hour.
I was like,
you can get off now.
Thanks. Go to your next client. Thanks for the reminder. But it's just so funny because we can get stuck in for me, it was like the perfection that I shouldn't have somehow been able, I should not have reacted, is like the thought that I told myself. Like, I should be so healed with that I won't even react when they say something that's infuriating. No, you're allowed to be infuriated when they say something infuriating.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, but the problem is nobody ever taught us how to be angry.
Yeah. So I guess let's talk about when you decided to write this book, and you are a men's transformation coach. Like, what does that actually even mean? If someone's listening, like, what does that mean? What do you do? And because we have a lot of listeners who are mostly women, but they obviously have men in their lives, and I'm sure they're doing their work, and they're wishing their partners or their friends or family members had done their own. So what does that look like?
Well, it's a complete undoing, as you can probably imagine. In the first half of life, we fight the devil. In the second half of life, we fight God. So let me use a client as an example that I spoke with today.
Okay.
Very driven, very assertive. He's a doctor, very ambitious. But in and through our work together, it became very clear that the unconscious motivation beneath his drive was to prove to himself and to other people that he was not his dad.
Mm.
So his primary stance is to be against, is to be in opposition to something. And that's what I mean by that when I say fight the devil. Right? Whatever that thing is, right? You're trying to prove to yourself or prove to someone else that you are not this or you are not that. Right?
Okay. I follow.
It's called the false self that we all develop when we're kids, who we think we need to be in order to be loved, accepted, and successful, which is in response to pain or in order to prevent pain from happening. That has to come undone in order for us to truly live out our unique purpose. It has to, because it's not who we truly are. It's who we think we need to be again.
Yeah.
Right. And so it puts us at odds within ourselves because we're not acting from our authentic nature. We're simply playing a role. We're playing a part. We have something to prove. We have something to protect. For me, I had something to protect. I never wanted to be abused again. I never wanted to be taken advantage of or humiliated in that way ever again. For my client, he had something to prove, that he was not his dad. And so, of course, what ends up happening, if that's your stance, it just continues to follow you around. And people create an incredible amount of success from this space, but they don't know peace. They don't know ease. Because what's driving, in many ways, their behavior? Right? It's ultimately avoidance.
Right.
And so that becomes the fuel by which a lot of people, especially men, rely upon in an attempt to succeed. But it's kind of like gasoline. Gasoline is a great fuel. It burns hot. It's very explosive, but it goes out fast. And so you have more men who are depressed more than ever before.
Yeah.
More men who report, and this is actually true for both men and women. I'm simply saying this from the perspective of being a men's coach. You have more men struggling with anxiety and on anti-anxiety medication than ever before. Because that's what happens when you live in a society that is bent on performance.
Yeah.
What does that end up doing? It tees you up for a life of performance, which creates a pressure cooker. So what do? You suppress the less than desirable qualities or characteristics about yourself, and you posture and you position, you bolster the more than ideal qualities and characteristics about yourself. But that puts us at odds within ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I just interviewed somebody on true masculine and feminine energy and how we all have both.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
if you're in a couple, there's 4 energies in there. It's different how much you lean into one versus the other. And it's fascinating because you can see, because our society is just so much on performance, which would consider a masculine energy, but there's so much of it that no one's actually being taught to cherish any of the emotions that they have or how to handle them or to do them. And so because no one's actually learning that from a childhood perspective, we don't find this out. If you at all cry, if you at all feel your feelings, that's considered less than. So no one is doing this. And we find out that not many people are happy. A lot of men today don't really actually know who they are, what they want to do. There's a lot of anxiety set. And it's it's because we're so much in it, but we don't actually understand how to use it as a tool for ourselves. We're just using it as a prevention from feeling the things we don't want to feel, or for people to not see through and not see the pain or not see the weaknesses there. It's very fascinating to me. So I want to get into your book.
Yeah.
You just published it recently, so it's out and available. What was that process like? Because obviously if it is what you're journaling, now you're sharing those things again.
Totally.
Now you're sharing again. So what was that process like, and how did you do it? Because writing a book is no small feat. That's really emotional, especially when it's part of your story. It's not like a business book. I feel like it'd be real easy, but
totally.
a personal approached book is going to be harder.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the common joke in the industry is that I can't wait for this book to make a ton of money so that I can go spend it all on therapy. You know? But yeah, it's the war of art, that Stephen Pressfield wrote a book about, which is the fact that in the process of creating art, we're forced to confront the unhealed, unintegrated, unreconciled parts of ourselves in order to create authentic art. Because it's really about coming back into relationship with who we are authentically. And that's what is at the forefront of my work with men, so that they can go from this identity that is focused on getting paid and getting laid to like their divine purpose, their higher purpose, their mission in life that is always bigger than the individual and is always meant to outlast the individual. And that's like the process of what my book was writing. It was like there was a lot of procrastination involved. And so, in the spirit of, see it to believe it. Yeah, I had to print off this picture. I got the cover designed and well before the book was finished, and printed it off and put it next to my desk to like motivate me. And along with statistics of how many men are abused every year. Less than 1% of men actually ever report their abuse, by the way. So these statistics really reminded me that this book is not about me. It's not meant for me. It's meant for other people, right? It's about the message, and it's about what it can do for other people to support them in their healing journey. That's what this book is for.
Yeah. Yeah. I thank you for sharing that story, how you got it, because I feel like so many people are waiting until this like perfect moment of when it's going to feel easy and they're going to feel ready to do the thing. And it's like, I feel like ready is a lie. And I can't imagine like if you had waited till you're ready, this book probably still wouldn't be done. I feel like ready comes after the book is done. You're like, okay, now I'm ready because I've already done the hard part.
Well, I mean, the big thing in what you just said is most people confuse readiness for a state of being. Readiness is not a state of being. Readiness is a decision.
Oh, I like that. We're going to rewind that, everyone. Listen to that one more time.
Yeah, 100%. I'll say it again. Readiness is not a state of being. Readiness is a decision. And to decide literally means to cut off or cut away all other options. When I decided that I was going to write this book, I hired a book writing coach. I designed the cover well before the book was finished. I printed it off, put it in a frame. It's up in my bedroom, right? This was years ago. Like I mentioned, well before the book was published. So I had massive skin in the game.
Yeah.
Right. I invested thousands of dollars. I had someone holding me accountable, holding my feet to the fire. And even after that, I hired a book writing agency to support me with the rewrites and the editing process and ultimately the publication process. And so I had massive amounts of skin in the game, but also accountability, really supporting me in moving forward. Because if I was left to my own devices, there's no way I would have ever done it myself. I'm not saying that that's true for everybody, but it's true for a lot of people.
I could agree more. Like, if you think about like, if you subscribe to Gretchen Rubin's like 4 tendencies, like I am an upholder. I don't actually need a lot of accountability. I'm going to do the thing if I decide I'm going to do it. When I wrote my book, I almost didn't publish it. The person who helped like ghostwrite it and just like, not ghostwrite, that's the wrong word. She helped me outline it and like make sure it made cohesive sense and all that stuff. I wrote it, but our contract was done. I had the whole thing and like, I just got busy. And she was like 2 months after, she was like, hey, I haven't seen any movement on this. Like, what are you doing?
What's the deal? Yeah.
And she said, look, I just really hope that you actually, like, it's a really good book. You should actually put it out there. And if she had not nudged me, I don't know that I would have put it out when I put it out. I probably would have eventually put it out. I probably would have waited till I was ready. But like even as someone who can like do pretty much anything without the accountability, something like that where like there's so much put into it and there's a lot on the line, you kind of need some skin in the game and you need an accountability. You just need someone to remind you that you're doing a great job and get it out there. It's going to help people because we can tell ourselves a crazy, amazing story about how it doesn't need to be out there yet.
Yeah. You're 100% spot on. And so in terms of, in the spirit of the podcast, everything manifests first in our imagination.
Mm-hmm.
I always knew that I was going to write a book that positively impacted the lives of people. Now, I'm not taking any responsibility for that necessarily, because in many ways, like, I do feel like your higher purpose is kind of given to you or imparted to you, if you will, by, God, life, fate, the universe, whatever you want to call it. Going back to, your calling is your curse. It's the thing that you can't not do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why most people die with regret, is because they don't actually bring that or make that manifest. And so you really have to know yourself and know the conditions that are necessary for you in order to make that manifest. For me, it was raising the bar on myself and growing into the person that I needed to be in order to reach it. And I think in many respects, that's true for a lot of us. I don't think everyone needs like incredibly strict accountability necessarily. In some respects, that can actually do more harm than good. It can be counterproductive. What's healthy and beneficial for one person can be detrimental to somebody else. But, if we speak in general terms, I think that's what we kind of really need to do for ourselves in the process of engaging in the war of art and making manifest our purpose, is we're going to have point of no return experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And a point of no return experience is, at least, not to get all technical, is actually defined as a financial commitment toward the goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's your skin in the game.
Yeah.
Right. Most people are really good at talking, but poor in action taking. And that's by design, because what we say is connected to our conscious mind, but what we actually do is connected to our unconscious. And that's where I support a lot of my clients with is aligning their unconscious beliefs to match their conscious desires. Because if they don't, there's going to be a lack of congruence there, and it's going to be a round peg square hole situation. So when it comes to manifesting the life, the abundance, the relationship that you want, those two things have to be in alignment. Otherwise you're swimming upstream.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very, very difficult to bring into fruition, bring into creation that which you deeply desire, whether it's a book or something else.
Yeah. So I feel like once the book is out there and like it's doing its thing, there's like, are you currently working on like something else? Are you excited about the next step of something else? Or where are you enjoying the process of the book being out there and it helping and getting through as many people as possible? Like, where are you at right now?
Sure. Well, as somebody who self-identifies as an author, I do believe on some level that every author is always kind of writing their next book. Even if it's only in their head.
Yeah.
I am doing that. Yes. I am not currently acting on it. I'm actually intentionally, consciously restraining myself from doing that, because I really want to give this book its due diligence.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think it's so easy. I know many of the people listening as recovering overachievers. Hello, that's me too. That's a meeting that's happening in the next hour. It's like you go and you hit the thing, you publish the book, or you do the race, or you whatever it is, and then you're like on to the next goal. Like, we don't actually like sit in the moment of like the celebration of what you just did. It's a really big deal, and also like really give it its due diligence, its due course to get it out there in many people's. Because what people don't realize is you publish a book, it's not like the Field of Dreams is the biggest lie ever sold to every American on this planet. Anyone who saw it. Like, if you build it, they don't come. You have to talk about it 17 times and then 17 more times and then 17 more times. And then maybe on the 37th time they go, oh, you wrote a book?
Oh, right. Yeah, totally.
Where did you get that book?
Yeah. Well, I think you point out something really powerful, which is that in and of itself can actually be its own act of self-sabotage. Moving on to the next thing, because you have this high, this significant pivotal moment, whether it's writing a book or whether it's, accomplishing something significant in your career, and you move on to the next thing because hedonic adaptation kicks in, which is that we return to our baseline level of happiness, which is determined by 4 primary things. 50% of it is genetics, actually. The other 50% is based on attitude, outlook, and environment.
That makes so much sense. I get that.
Right.
Yeah.
So we return to our baseline level of happiness. After the high, we have the come down, right? Simply put. And oftentimes people are really uncomfortable with what they find there. Because their life in many respects is the same.
Yeah.
Right. Their circumstances might have adjusted slightly, whether it's like more money in the bank or more recognition, but how they feel internally is the same.
Yeah.
So it's just a same package, different bow, same song, different dance scenario. And people are forced to confront the reality of who they are and who they've become in that moment. And so by moving on to the next thing, what do they get to do?
They get to ride the high again.
They get to avoid being in that space.
Yeah.
Right. Because now they're chasing after the next thing. Right. And that's where so many people find themselves nowadays, is chasing after rainbows. So, yeah, to answer your question, my goal is to absolutely give this book, its due prudence, its time in the limelight. I think I said due diligence earlier. It wasn't the right phrase, but get it into the hands of as many people as possible, so that it can take on a life of its own, essentially, because this is going to outlive me. Right?
Yeah.
So this is not connected in many ways to me anymore, although I wrote it and my name's on it. But it is taking on a life of its own. I have people buying it in countries all over the world that I've never met, that I've never even spoken to, and whose lives that it's impacting. And I'm very humbled by that. And that's kind of the point, right? Is that it takes on a life of its own, and the people who read it get what they need from it.
Yeah. And well, you said there's part of our happiness is genetic, and then there's the 3 parts of it that it seems like if you are aware of them and you actually sit with the thing that you just created, you can turn those dials in a way that the next time you have an amazing win, we don't go back to baseline. We can keep growing and creating the happiness that we want without avoidance and just working towards the next thing all the time.
I think happiness is kind of a shallow goal, to be honest with you. In the same way that, we've been sold this idea that, if you build it, they will come, which is from a marketing perspective nowadays, we know that that doesn't really work, unless you've got just a ton of cash that can enable you to float the business indefinitely while enough word spreads and word of mouth takes over. I think in many respects, happiness is kind of a shallow goal. I think we should strive for improvement, and I think that's what ultimately creates this fulfillment, that we are working towards, ever progressing towards a goal. And that's why I love the whole premise of this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Is because that's what it's all about. You're working towards something, you're in pursuit of something that you have yet to accomplish.
Yeah.
And it's really all about doing the internal work that you need to be able to bring that thing into reality.
Yeah.
Because that's what people struggle with the most. It's never the logistics. It's never the circumstances of how do I write a book? You can look up a YouTube video on how to do anything nowadays.
Oh, yeah. We tiled the floor with YouTube.
Yeah, right. Anything, renovate a van. Here you go.
Yeah, it's working, guys. It's very helpful. Yeah, I think I really like that you said that towards improvement. And I think it is why I've been being it till I see it It just like kind of, I didn't even know I was doing it until I was like, what am I doing? How am I doing these things? Oh, I'm just doing that. It's a very interesting thing. I think like, and there's a difference between going, and like, as you said, doing the internal work so that you're improving. It reminds me of one of our guests from the beginning of the year. And he said every day he asks himself if like he's 1% better. Did he do the work that makes him 1% closer to the person he wants to be? And like,
that's the Kaizen way.
Yeah. It's just like, and it's like, 1%, that's not a lot. So you're not pushing yourself through a cement wall. You're actually like, you're doing some internal work to take some action that's just enough to actually get the improvement, but not so much that you're not sitting still and being with yourself at the same time. Jacob, you're so cool. I think that this book is really awesome and needed. We're going to take a brief break and then people can find out where they can follow you, get your book, and also your Beit action items. Okay, Jacob, where can people get the book? Where can people work with you? Where can any of our male listeners or the people who are sending this to their male friends work with you?
Totally. So the best place to connect with me is on my Instagram, which is I am Jake Kauffman. So that's Kauffman. You can find the book on Amazon, Let Love In. My full name, Jacob Kauffman, JACOBKAUFFMAN. Otherwise, you can also check out my website. You can sign up for my newsletter, which is awakewithjake.com, Awake with Jake. And
I like it. I like the way it sounds.
Yeah. It's, I think I think that might be the name of my podcast, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Don't no ETA on that yet, but stay tuned. And but yeah, if you're interested in connecting, hearing more about my work that I do with my private clients and my mentorship, or the men's groups that I run, the retreats that I hold, by all means, feel free to reach out on Instagram. Happy to share about that.
The last thing is bold, executable, intrinsic target steps people can take to be it till they see it. What do you have for us?
Ooh, so good. So in a lot of the work that I do with men, there oftentimes is almost a need to disconnect from their goals because they actually, they wake up to the reality that goals are, historically speaking, an unconscious attempt in order to claim victory over a lack of self-worth. It's a way in which they avoid their pain. So they become hypervigilant doers. That said,
I think it's quite bold to say to disconnect from those goals. I'll tell.
Yeah. I'm gonna give people two things.
Okay.
Because there's nothing inherently wrong with having goals. In many respects, we need to have them to create more purposeful living. Here's what I would do is if you have a goal, write that goal down on a piece of paper and then double it. Because in my experience, we seriously underestimate our ability to generate results. So, if it's a monetary goal, double it, easy. If it's 100,000, make it 200,000. If it's to write a book in the next year, cut it in half. And say, I'm going to write a book in the next 6 months. Something like that, where you're doubling it or you're shortening the time frame in an effort to push yourself or challenge yourself. And then you're going to write down these following things. You're going to write down, why do I want the goal? What will this enable me to do? And then, how am I going to do it? That's your action plan. And then finally, you simply create a contract with yourself and you write down, I and your name am officially unavailable for any other outcome. And then you sign it and you date it. And then by when will you accomplish it?
I love this. I'm saving this. I have a few things I was working on my tour for goals I have for myself that I was going to figure out while we're on the road, and I'm going to half the time, or I'm going to double the thing. Yep. I love it. And then I'll write the contract.
There you go. So recap the goal.
Yep.
By when you'll accomplish it. Why do I want it? What am I hoping that this will do for me or allow me to do? How am I going to do it? And then I, your name, am officially unavailable for any other outcome. Sign it and date it.
Ooh, Jacob, thank you so much for being here, sharing your story, and all, just like really helping us rethink maybe some of the ways we think about some of the things we're doing in our life. I'm excited for your book. I'm so happy it's out there. I think it's very necessary. And I do believe it's going to be life-changing for many. And also for these, actually, I love them so much. I already know some of our listeners who are going to be using them. So
Awesome.
So y'all, how are you going to use these? Make sure you tag Jake on Instagram, the Beit Pod. Let us know. Share this with a friend who needs it. That is how people often get healed. I had a friend recently post something and she was going through, and I was like, I actually don't have the words, but I have a podcast that'd be really good for her. So I just
There you go.
sent it to her, and she was so grateful. And so, that you have no idea how you can help people with doing things like that. And until next time, be it till you see it.
That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Be It Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day.
Be It Till You See It is a production of the Bloom Podcast Network.
It's written, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Kroll.
It is produced and edited by the epic team at Disenyo.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to Melissa Solomon for creating our visuals and Semena Velazquez for our transcriptions.
Also to Angelina Herrico for adding all the content to our website, and finally to Meredith Crowell for keeping us all on point and on time.